Good evening, everybody. So we got lot to talk about tonight. First of all, Scott Adams, Iran, Elon Musk. I do want to go back to what we talked about on Sunday related to what's going on with ICE and who I consider the squatters, and get into that. We had some controversy on Sunday. There's been some additional controversy in X, which I have not been on for a while. A while for me is a couple of days. I'm taking a break from Twitter to try and reset the algorithm if at all possible because of all the craziness that's going on. So we will get into the first story of the day. And I want to just say rest in peace to Scott Adams, because he is somebody who haven't really followed all that much, but he's had some controversial things to say in the past. And of course, the Dilbert creator, one of the things that he had talked about was how whites need to stay away from black people, and then also how important it was for everybody to take the shot. And then once he realized that he was wrong about that, tried to apologize to everybody and say how wrong he was about it. So it was kind of funny to see him sort of backtrack on those things, and how he was sort of, I guess, trying to be, in my opinion, trying to be a conservative, but wasn't very good at it. But I think he meant well. I think he was a good guy. And unfortunately, cancer, which a lot of us unfortunately have to deal with, took his life way too early, and it's really a shame. So I wanted to play something that I had watched from CBS News earlier on today. That this was sort of a tribute, or some, I guess, a story about him. So I'm going to go ahead and play that to get us started.
You know this face and you know his work. The creator of the long-running comic strip Dilbert died this morning at age 68. Scott Adams' legacy complicated in his later years as he pivoted from satirizing American corporate culture in his comic strip to sharing right-wing commentary in his podcast. Correspondent Chanel Call joins us on Adams and his legacy. So we also see that President Donald Trump weighed in a tribute.
That's right. We are getting some reaction to this news this hour, Reed. I can tell you that Scott Adams was battling prostate cancer since last May of 2025. And just 10 days ago, Reed, he posted an update sharing more about his condition to his fans and his followers on a live stream on his YouTube page, saying, quote, "The odds of me recovering are essentially zero." Then today, Reed, his ex-wife, Shelley Miles, shared an update about his passing on that same page. Watch.
Unfortunately, this isn't good news. Of course, he waited till just before the show started, but he's not with us right anymore.
And you talked about President Donald Trump reacting to all of this today. I want to just rewind for a moment first to talk about the relationship between the two, because during his battle with prostate cancer, Reed, we know that Adams had reached out to President Donald Trump on the social media platform X, asking for him and the administration's help to access a specific type of new drug, new treatment that would help people with prostate cancer. It was a new targeted therapy for prostate cancer. The president actually helped to make that happen, but ultimately that treatment was postponed because he needed to have radiation treatment done first. Adams then became paralyzed from the waist down, and in his most recent update, he said there was no chance they would ever regain feeling in his legs. You're looking at my computer screen right now, where I've shared with you the statement from the president that he posted just a few moments ago, saying, "Sadly, the great influencer Scott Adams has passed away. He was a fantastic guy who liked and respected me when it wasn't fashionable to do so." I'll also show you some reaction this hour coming in from Vice President J.D. Vance on X. He says Scott Adams was a true American original and a great ally to the President of the United States and the entire administration. My prayers go to Scott and all of you who loved him. We lost one of the good ones, but we'll never forget him. Now, just to give you a bit of background here, you mentioned this off the top. Scott Adams, known for creating Dilbert, which is this comic strip. It debuted in 1989. It's about workplace culture and satire around that. As you know, it sort of became this cultural phenomenon. But there's also another side of Scott Adams that people may remember. Later in life, he became a conservative political commentator, and he also drew a lot of backlash and criticism for calling Black Americans a hate group. And because of those comments, there was a book deal on the table. That publisher had dropped that book deal in the wake of those comments. Also, the former distributor for Dilbert had cut ties with him because of those comments about Black Americans. Scott Adams now dying at the age of 68. Reed?
Chanel Call, thank you.
So again, I was sort of surprised. I knew that he, was in, was in a difficult position, that things were probably not going to be good, but I think he passed away a lot faster than I thought he would. And I also thought that when he did reach out to Donald Trump, and there was, of course, there was controversy about that he would get that treatment, and somehow that might work out for him, but unfortunately it didn't. So anyway, I just wanted to start off the show with that, and to do a little tribute about him. That like I said, I wasn't somebody who would go in and watch him all the time, but I would watch. I did follow him on X and did watch his show, and definitely had some interesting things to say, and it's really a shame that what happened. So I want to move to Iran. There's a lot of protests that are going on in Iran right now, and seemingly it's not really that much of a surprise considering the failure of the attack on Iran originally going after the nuclear facilities in Iran. That I would say a lot of people would say was a failure, that ultimately they're going to go back into Iran again and attack it. And these protests are a good reason to do it. I'm also skeptical on how they all started, but let's see what the president has to say about the protests in Iran.
President Trump hitting back at Iran after freedom protests across that nation turned deadly. The president announcing a 25% tariff on any country that conducts business with Iran. He's also issuing a stark and direct warning to the Iranian regime, all options on the table. In a Truth Social post just this morning, President Trump encouraged protesters to keep fighting, saying, quote, help is on the way. Jackie, China, this would mean a new 25% tariff, an end to this trade fight pause from October. China is the biggest trading partner with Iran, then the UAE, Turkey, India, and Oman.
Yeah, and this heats everything up again in a tariff situation that was starting to just settle. So we were getting a break from that, and oil prices are up a little bit today, but not as much as they would have been if we were talking about this, 20 years ago. So that's positive, and we're already in a lowered place because of President Trump. So around the $60 mark, I'm not really worried about it. Usually I would take my time to dig into the oil aspect of it, but today I just rather do something else. Sure. I was particularly struck by the story of one 26-year-old. His name is Irfan Soltani. He's scheduled to be hanged to death in Iran after he was arrested during the protests. That scheduling is for tomorrow. We are reporting, many outlets are reporting, more than 500 people have been killed in the protests. That's sort of the...
No, I'm not saying this is true or it's not true either way, but there's a common theme that happens here when it comes to this stuff. There is a lot of things, especially in the Iraq War, in other wars that have taken place, where there are stories that are put out there to essentially tug at your heartstrings to sort of justify the invasion or justify the war. And again, I'm not saying that these things aren't happening. However, again, many people predicted after the failure of the first attack that we were going back in again. And so I can almost guarantee you with 100% certainty, it's not just going to end on these protests. These protests were started, may have been intelligence agencies, who knows. But this is going to be, I mean, it's almost in my mind a guarantee that we're going to be going in and attacking again.
Unofficial number. The Jerusalem Post is reporting that over 12,000 people have been killed so far. There are many reports on X that the hospitals are completely overwhelmed, that the scene in the streets is pretty gruesome. And I think about this individual, 26 years old, didn't ask for this regime to come into power, but is in a situation where he is risking his life, and ultimately his life tomorrow can come to an end as he tries with so many other young people to try to overthrow this government. President Trump and the tariff aspect of this, I think he's going in stages. I've always told everybody, whether we're talking about business strategies, tariff strategies, foreign policy strategies, that you have to trust him, that there's a method to his madness. I think the same rules apply here. I think starting with the tariffs is phase one, but he means it when he says all options are on the table. I think if there's any opportunity for the Iranian people to become free of this oppressive
Class 365, where are you from?
Regime and situation that they're in, it's now, and I think they recognize that. They've tried to rise up before, but never like this. I think they understand if you're going to do it, if you're going to risk your life, if you're going to be hanged in the public square tomorrow, you want President Trump to have your back, and I think that he will. His Truth Social post, Dagan, that you referenced this morning, almost places himself as sort of a revolutionary strategist, giving them advice on what to do. So I wait to see what happens, like everybody else does. I'm appalled by all the people who protested in America and around the world in support of Gaza and Hamas and the humanitarian violations that were occurring there, but are remaining silent on this situation. And I think it tells you that there's a larger problem with ideology, and that was never about the people in that particular situation, but it was support of this heinous ideology, which the silence, I think, also speaks to.
I saw a photo of what was the globalized, the Intifada encampment up at Columbia, and it was just green grass. And that just speaks to the complete emptiness of that movement, and the fact that they don't really stand for anything other than their own power grab, the pro-Hamas protesters, which are now anti-ICE protesters. But anybody just jump in here, because tariffs are one of President Trump's chosen weapons, and certainly oil, or to cut off oil exports out of Iran, because they are running oil production.
You know, the way things are going, it's probably a very good possibility that the United States is going to go after Russia. They're trying to do everything they possibly can and through a proxy. But yeah, I think it might actually happen. So they're going to start small and work their way up.
Is at the highest level since the late 70s. And oil exports, say to China, where 90% of its exports go, are at an all-time high. And it's making, even in the fall, like that's one area the Trump administration has not focused on, is stopping those oil exports.
Yeah, he's gone back on the tariffs. I mean, they're not
Iran is
helping.
making still close to $50 billion a year. And that's at cheap cost, selling to the teapot refineries in China.
So I can jump on that, and then, Kenny and Brian weigh in. There are reports that a large share of Iran's production, 2 million barrels a day, Dagan, to your point, goes directly to Chinese refineries. So again, how do some of those get rerouted if there is major supply disruptions in that region? That region is the Strait of Hormuz, and I know we talked about that during the bunker buster program in Iran, right? And that ended up being a nothing burger, thankfully then. But again, if that's sort of the backbone of global oil supply, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, UAE,
Qatar, they all go through there, right? So if there are broader regions, I think that's the region to watch if there is sort of this escalation. This 25% tariff, though, Brian, is interesting because we don't really know what doing business with Iran means. That post from Trump was limited in detail, effectively just saying a 25% tariff, but it would affect those major economies with Iran. It is China, it's India, it's Turkey, but those are trading partners with Tehran, but also Washington. So I do wonder, and I think, gosh, 1,000 different ways to go here. Is this, and this is a question, a broader spillover economically than the bunker buster? Is this more contained like we saw? And finally, Jackie, I echo your notes yesterday. I cannot wait to.
Klaus, you think that somehow Russia has better weapons than the United States does? Honestly, do you really honestly believe that?
See the social justice warriors who were silent on the issue today.
So here's the thing that changed for me between, remember when Larry used to come on our show and he'd say, interdict the ships? And he was talking about Iran and China and oil. He said, interdict the ships, right? He used to say that a lot. But the thing that changed is all those Venezuelan tankers that we have been seizing over the last several weeks. And I think if you're one of these Iranian leaders and you have seen that, you have said to yourself, that's something that I have not seen, that guy, Mr.
Well, the same thing with Russia, and Russia can't even handle Ukraine. That should have been over a long time ago, but they can't even handle them. So if you think that they can handle the United States, bro, seriously, now you're getting annoying and you're being stupid.
Trump is willing to do. You use the phrase all options on the table. I think what's so powerful about President Trump on this is he makes the word options very concrete. Yeah. He might seize your ship. He might apprehend a leader who's wanted criminally. He might drop bombs on your nuclear facility. Those are all options in the set of things he has done in the last year. And to me, that's why I think more than ever, Jackie, and you're the expert, I'm not, I think there's a possibility that these leaders in Iran leave before they see any of that stuff happen again, because they know Trump will do it. It's called deterrence.
He means business. And it's been clear, right? Because to your point, he said it, he's done it in Venezuela, he's done it here, he's done it in Iran already. So he does what he says he's going to do. He doesn't back off. And I think you're right, that they recognize it.
They're worried about that. Obviously, I think Maduro was kind of the last straw of that worry. There were reports, I believe, last week that it was the supreme leader that was making plans to flee to Russia. Thinking about how he would exit the way Bashar al-Assad did from Syria. We'll see.
And President Trump said in that Truth Social post that he has canceled all meetings with Iranian officials.
Right.
And before we go, just Venezuela and Iran together, what's happening in Venezuela with potential oil production increases, which could go up 50%, just in the short run, regardless of what the guy at ExxonMobil had to say on Friday. There are two companies that are helping with the marketing of the oil, the 50 million barrels of oil that are in stockpiles. They're in talks with large Indian and Chinese refiners over potential sales of that Venezuelan crude. So that helps fill the gap and create some crude diplomacy to backfill what's happening, what might be cut off coming out of Iran. So
heavy crude diplomacy.
Yes.
It's pretty heavy.
But we can refine it and then send it there.
There you go.
Yep. All right, Captain USA. So, all right. So I know, class is I'm getting ready to send you out of here. But there's so much. I mean, when I'm talking on X, because I'm on X and I'm on lots of X spaces. In fact, the biggest X spaces that are out there, where you have thousands of people listening, and it's amazing to see what's happening with the propaganda that is coming out of Iran and Russia. And there are certain people, kind of like this guy, Class, who are obvious propagandists when it comes to trying to steer the narrative on what's going on. So it's Russia and Iran intelligence that are doing these things, and just like what he's doing right now is just constantly saying one thing after another. They can't handle Ukraine. They can't handle just a basic country like Ukraine, with all of the all the shit talking and everything else. It's really, I mean, it's so obvious now, and watch this guy, Class, continue to go on and on and on. It's embarrassing to watch. And people know it now. People know it more now than ever what's going on out of that country and out of Iran. So, so I'm going to get him out of here, because it's, like I said, you see it on X like crazy. And, the sad thing about it is this is a guy, who pretty much does the same thing that all these people do on X, and it's just a propaganda thing. And the thing is, what makes it super obvious is that you see what's going on with, and I'm going to get into it later on. I talked about it on Sunday. Russia's never been anything, and so when you see these guys all of a sudden start defending the two bull dykes that were protesting in Minnesota and Minneapolis and tried to run a ICE officer over, the propagandists like this guy were defending the woman behind the wheel and not the ICE officer. And if you don't defend them, and then all of a sudden you are this, you're in favor of the IDF, Israel, everything else. I mean, it's absolutely nuts. But the mask comes off, and then you start to understand, you start to realize who these guys are and what is going on. And the propaganda machine is just in full, full mode, I guess, for the lack of a better word. But yeah, distraction, Captain, and it's in full force, man. It really is. And they can't really hide it anymore. They just make it way too obvious now. So I want to move on to Trump on Ilhan Omar. I want to sort of go back to what's going on with Minnesota and the Somali immigrants, illegal immigrants, and what they're doing to our country, to the taxpayer. And I certainly, and I'll go into this a little bit more later on. But the thing that I really wanted to discuss is how our own government seemingly is involved in this. And let's just listen to what Trump says about Ilhan Omar.
Think of that Ilhan Omar. She lives in Somalia. They don't have a government. They don't have a military. They don't have police. They don't have anything. All they have is murder and robbing ships, bringing in ships, pirates. That's stopped. Same missile, ping. That's the end of them. It's amazing how that can stop corruption. Those missiles, they never miss, The same one, exactly the same one. But think of it. She comes from a country with nothing, and she comes here and she tells us about our Constitution. I have a constitutional right to rip off the country. I guess she's a total scam artist. Anybody knows it. How do you let her get away with it? AOC +3. She was one of the three. They're all scammers. They're so bad for our country. They're so bad for our country. Our ICE operation in Minnesota, for example, is finding hundreds of killers, violent predators, and child rapists, some of the worst criminal offenders anywhere in the world, murderers all over the place. All we want to do is get them out. Did you see the pictures that we put up? Hundreds of them. Murderers, wanted for murder, wanted for the worst drug selling. One of them is one of the biggest drug dealers in the world. And vicious, sells bad drugs too. Bad drugs, like if you take a tiny little morsel, your child is dead. And we're getting them. But it's hard to get them because they make it so impossible for you. And you wonder why. Why would they do that? You know, do they want to live with murderers? Do they want to live with these people that are emptied out from prisons? They have a lot of people. One of the reasons I was so angry with Venezuela, they emptied their prisons almost entirely into the United States of America. Tren de Aragua was the gang, one of the worst, probably the most violent gang there is anywhere in the world, they say. We're getting them out. We've got a lot of them out already, but we're getting them out. We're also going to revoke the citizenship of any naturalized immigrant from Somalia or anywhere else who is convicted of defrauding our citizens. We're going to get them the hell out of here fast. And if you come to America to rob Americans, we're throwing you in jail and we're sending you back to the place from where you came.
So, yeah, that good point, Captain USA. These DOJ prosecutors have resigned, and good. I'm glad they did. They are worthless. These are people who obviously are bad at their jobs. It's a political thing. The shooting, if you talk to or listen to plenty of experts in law and law enforcement, so lawyers and those who were in law enforcement, retired and current, and and just pure common sense. And this is the thing where we've lost the country. We've lost the country because of people like these prosecutors who want to investigate the shooting. There's nothing to investigate at all. And if you don't know that as a lawyer, especially as a DOJ lawyer, you should never have had that job in the first place. And this is why we have a problem in America right now. The reason America is in such shambles is because we have people like these DOJ prosecutors who resigned. It's because they had those jobs in the first place. They never deserve to even have law degrees. They never deserved to have law licenses. They certainly never deserved to have those jobs. They are incompetent to the nth degree. And to even request to investigate what happened is some of the most ridiculous shit I've ever heard of in my life. And I'm going to go over that later on in a video where there are people who are just sitting there trying to argue the fact that this shooting was not okay. It was, and I heard every single excuse leading up to it before any of the video came out, that she was scared. She didn't know what she was doing. She had the wheel turned. She was actually just trying to back up and get out of the way. And then she was shot from the side, not from the front only. But then every single time a new piece of evidence came out, video evidence, the goalpost got moved again and again. So first they said she wasn't shot from the front, and the windshield she was. Then they said that she was scared. She obviously wasn't. Neither her or her wife were scared because they were talking trash to the officers the entire time. And just one law enforcement after another officer and one self-defense lawyer after another, an expert after another, said they were justified shoots. So, once again, here you go. You have just all the freaks coming out defending these two people who should never have been there in the first place. They were causing problems with ICE officers from the very beginning. They were harassing them physically and verbally. And then when something like this happens, of course, they defend the aggressors when something happens to them. And this is something that they wanted from the very beginning. They wanted those two lesbos wanted this to happen. I mean, they were there for a reason. And what I find also funny is how cocky they were until all of a sudden they weren't. And the wife is crying and saying it was my fault. She admitted that it was her fault. She said to a witness on camera, on his phone camera, that she takes the blame for it. This wouldn't have happened if I didn't invite her here. And they were new in town and everything else. So, once again, I'll get into this because you're going to end up having I'll show you a guy that is in a space, an X space, one of the largest spaces on Twitter, if not the largest, going through in detail why the shooting was justified. But again, this is being used as a political tool to stop deportations. That's all this is. This was meant to have had, and they wanted this to happen. They may not have wanted somebody to actually get shot and killed, but they wanted this. This was paid for and orchestrated in order to have something to try and stop the deportations. It's that simple. It's not in dispute. And anybody else that says you're insane or that's wrong doesn't matter anymore. And nobody's listening anymore. They might have during George Floyd, maybe. They might have listened a little bit, but not anymore. So, the communism they're doing their best to try and take over, but it's not happening anymore and things are changing. And once again, we'll go through those videos. But I did want to go through Tampon Timmy the fraudster and Kukta Somali sausages actively guzzling down Somali cream as we speak. Johnny, very, very well said. Very well said. I won't keep that up for very long, but yeah, I mean, it's obvious fraud, and then these guys at the DOJ that are stepping down. Okay, good. You didn't belong there in the first place. You should have been fired. But I want to. And I know this is it's a controversial topic, but I do want to kind of go off on a video that I did earlier today that Elon Musk thinks that you will not need to retire because AI is going to allow all of us to have so much, I guess, great things in our lives that we don't need to save money anymore. So I'm going to play the video for you. I want to hear what everybody's opinions are on this.
Imagine a world where saving money is pointless, where the concept of retirement doesn't exist, where a robot might do your job better than you ever could. That's the future Elon Musk says is coming, and he insists it's closer than you think. On the latest Moonshots with Peter Diamandis podcast, Musk stunned listeners with a bold prediction. Don't worry about squirreling money away for retirement in 10 or 20 years. It won't matter. The Tesla and SpaceX CEO calls it a supersonic tsunami of AI and robotics that will bring unprecedented abundance, making the traditional link between work, wages, and savings irrelevant. Musk predicts that by 2030, artificial intelligence will surpass the intelligence of all humans combined. He believes humanoid robots will outnumber people on Earth, and white-collar jobs will be replaced first. Anything short of shaping atoms, AI can do probably half or more of those jobs right now, he said. This isn't science fiction. Musk says it's a productivity explosion that will allow people to live without worrying about earning a living. He envisions a universal, you can have whatever you want income, granting access to goods, services, and education far beyond what is available today. Even healthcare could reach levels previously thought impossible, all without traditional savings. For now, most Americans struggle to save. A Federal Reserve survey shows only 55% of adults have a 3-month emergency fund, and fewer than half could cover a $2,000 expense from savings. Retirement preparedness is even weaker, leaving many dependent on uncertain income streams. Musk's vision promises to rewrite the rules entirely, but he's not blind to the risks. A society where work is optional could bring social unrest and personal crises of meaning. If you actually get all the stuff you want, is that actually the future you want? Because it means your job won't matter, Musk warns. Leisure may replace necessity, but he questions whether human fulfillment can survive without purpose. Musk's predictions challenge everything from the stock market to retirement planning. Traditional advice about building a nest egg may soon seem as outdated as typewriters in an AI-driven world. The stakes are massive. The economy, personal security, and even the meaning of work itself could be upended. While critics scoff, Musk's record of betting on futuristic technologies gives weight to his vision. SpaceX has redefined space travel, Tesla reshaped energy in cars, and Neuralink is exploring brain-machine interfaces. If Musk is right, the AI revolution won't just change jobs, it will erase the very need for them. The question is no longer whether AI will transform life. It's how ready we are to live in a world where money, work, and scarcity might vanish. Musk warns that the future will arrive faster than most expect. For those still clinging to savings accounts and retirement plans, the choice is stark. Adapt or risk being left behind in a society where abundance is guaranteed and the rules of survival are rewritten. What do you think? Could Musk's vision actually come true? Could robots and AI really make work optional and money irrelevant? If it does happen, what will it mean for humanity? Will people find new purpose? Or could a life without work leave us searching for meaning? How will relationships, ambition, and society itself change when the basic need to earn a living disappears? Some experts warn that without challenges or goals, humans could struggle to find fulfillment, even in a world of endless abundance. Others say creativity, exploration, and connection will thrive like never before. We want to hear from you. How would you live in a world where you could have anything you want, but work is no longer required?
So it is interesting because, yes, AI is going to take white-collar jobs in all likelihood first. So when it comes to the law, when it comes to accounting and office-related type jobs, maybe even insurance that I'm in, that the AI is going to end up eliminating those jobs and even physical jobs once robots come in. But it is also a very interesting question. What will happen to all of us when robots and AI do take over everything? Will there be a societal collapse? And it's almost like you have to have a UBI of some sort because so many people are going to be losing their jobs so quickly. It could happen so quickly that it does cause a massive issue because AI is so rapidly changing. But I can tell you that I think it's almost going to be like a Y2K type thing, where Y2K, everybody thought the world was coming to an end when we were going to hit the year 2000. I'm not so sure that that's the case because I'll tell you this, AI is really not that strong. It still makes a lot of mistakes. It's going to be many, many years off before it can think and have a mind like a human does. And like I said, there's going to be lots of mistakes. You're already seeing it too, the way it's programmed by these libtard programmers, where it doesn't tell the truth. It tries to be woke. It tries to be careful with how it handles itself when it comes to race and everything else. It just doesn't come out and really tell the absolute truth like it should. And that's always going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem with who programs this stuff. So it'll be interesting to see. But the biggest thing, though, is for Elon Musk to say, well, you don't have to worry about retirement anymore because AI is going to fix all that. It's kind of a scary thing to think about. But, in a way, it sort of makes sense because if your job's going to be taken away, first of all, how are you going to be able to save for retirement? So there's that. But then what's going to end up happening if you don't make a ton of money and put a ton of money away now, and then you lose your job, then what? What are you going to do? So it's an interesting question. And I think ultimately he's right. It's just going to matter. It's going to be a matter of time on when that happens. And now Grok, of all of the AIs, is going to take over the Pentagon's AI. So this is really going to be interesting to hear.
Hello. Hello, everybody. All right, welcome to Starbase, Texas. This is a city, it's actually legally a city, that thanks to the hard work of the SpaceX team, we built out of nothing, and is now a gigantic rocket manufacturing system. So, and for people out there who are curious to see it, we're actually on a public highway, so you can come and visit and drive down the road and see the epic hardware. So, I think this is the first time that a rocket development program has actually been on a public highway. So you can come and see the epic stuff. We're honored today to have the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, and much of the senior leadership of the Pentagon here. It's an honor to have them visit. We just did a tour of the factory, and I think it really helps illustrate how manufacturing and manufacturing at scale is critical to the strength of America. So, and I'll tell you a little bit just about the purpose of SpaceX. It's like we want to make Star Trek real. Okay? We want to make Starfleet Academy real. So that.
And when it comes to all this, I don't have a problem with it, and that's great, but don't use my taxpayer money to do it. Raise the money some other way. And that's the problem with all of this stuff that's going on in Minnesota and everything else. In order for anyone to get rich, whether it be legal or illegal, it's always off the backs of the American taxpayer. They've been paying over and over and over again for years upon years upon years, had their money essentially stolen from them to create pet projects for child care fraud, for SpaceX, which I really don't give a shit about. I don't care if we go to Mars. I don't care if we go to the moon. I really don't. You know, if you want to do that, that's awesome. Build all the rockets you want, but don't use my taxpayer money to do it.
It's not always science fiction, but one day the science fiction turns to science fact. And we have spaceships going through space, big spaceships, with people going to other planets, going to the moon, and ultimately going beyond our star system to other star systems where we may meet aliens or discover long-dead alien civilizations. I don't know, but we want to go. Wow. And we want to see what's happening, and we want to have epic futuristic spaceships with lots of people in them, traveling to places we've never been to before. Yeah, that's that's the goal. And that's what I think the public thinks of when they think of Space Force. So, on that note, I'd like to introduce the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth.
Thank you, Elon. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. How about this? Star Trek real.
Star Trek original. Yes.
Appreciate it.
So, yeah, and again, why Grok? Why not ChatGPT? Why not Perplexity? Why not Claude? You know, why not, other AI? Why does it have to be Grok necessarily? And to me, I think you have to have more than one AI, because not all are created equal. Not all of them work all that well. Some you sort of, in a way, have to pit against the other to find out really what the truth is. I just was doing that today on saying, well, one researched this and came up with this information. You're saying it didn't exist, so you go kind of going back and forth with the AI, and ultimately, it's just not good enough. Certainly not good enough for any sort of application to the military. I mean, maybe in its basic form, but I found that interesting that of course, Elon Musk, and of course, he had that riff with Trump, and they were buddies, and then Doge was obviously a complete failure, and he gets into a fight with Trump, and now they're best buddies again, and now Grok is going to be the AI of choice for the Department of Defense. One more thing about Trump, and then I want to move on to the dumb takes on the ICE shooting. And so Donald Trump is floating. Now, I think Donald Trump at this point is starting to come to the realization that a lot of Gen Zers, younger voters, are really pissed off. They're really pissed off, whether you call them the Groypers or whatever you want to call them. These young people have essentially had their, and a lot of us have, even Gen Xers, millennials, have had their lives essentially ripped away financially from baby boomers. Baby boomers have caused serious problems for latter generations because of their selfishness, greed, etc. And they hoped that Donald Trump was going to come in and clean all that up. And I think they have spoken and have been speaking that it's been an utter failure, that we still have these wars going on. We still are sending money to foreign aid to foreign countries. And the tax breaks are going to people with four, or a family of four, not a family of three or two or one. And also corporations are getting massive tax cuts. And so I think now Donald Trump is starting to realize you better start doing something. Otherwise, the midterms are going to be a real serious problem. I think it's probably too late at this point. I think you're going to see the midterms, unfortunately, are going to turn in the other direction. But at this point, I throw my hands in the air and just say, if you're not going to pay attention to your base who voted for you, then this is kind of what's going to end up happening. But let's see this capping credit. And again, I don't see this happening. I think it's just it's always throwing red meat to the base to get them to shut up. But we'll see.
President Trump kicking off the new year with affordability at the top of his mind. He's making the American dream a reality again for young adults by tackling high housing costs, and he's considering a 10% cap on credit card interest rates. Priceless Tax founder and financial influencer Taylor Price, she joins us now. Taylor, it's so great to have you on. Let's talk first about this credit card situation. So my understanding is that the president is thinking on January 20th, which is the anniversary of his, entry into this current term of his presidency, the 1-year anniversary. He says, I'm going to cap all these interest rates at 10%. Your thoughts?
So right now, credit card interest rates are really at 25 to 30%. So a 10% cap could be life-changing for a lot of young Americans. When we think about it, if we're paying $300 a month towards credit cards, a lot of that actually ends up going to interest. But here's the trade-off with that. Banks could get pickier on who they choose to approve, right? So young adults who already have established credit, this is going to be a positive win for those generations. But for the younger generations and maybe those who don't have as much credit established yet, this could be a bit dangerous.
So we did a Fox News poll, young people about young people's financial situations, and it says that 42% of them have fallen behind in their payments, 41% are holding steady, and 17% say they're getting ahead on their financial situation. 42% say they're falling behind. That's a big number.
I think that number is way higher than that. I mean, you have to take into account student loan debt on top of all of this. And also rent. I mean, mortgages is one thing, but there are apartment complexes where if you get a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment, it's $3,000 a month. And so, and once again, why no one talks about why this is. When you see housing prices going up as high as they are, and credit card debt is going up as high as it's going, it's because of immigration. You have more people coming into the country, legal and illegal. That adds more competition for housing. It adds more competition for jobs. And so what ends up happening is it drives up the cost of housing, whether it's in apartments, rent, or mortgages. And then you, of course, you have BlackRock and Blackstone and all them, these companies buying up homes, private homes, jacking up the prices and then unloading them because they can't even get that shit right. And then you have all these people that are coming in that are taking jobs and they're driving down wages. And so once again, this is why Trump was elected overwhelmingly, in order to get rid of these people, in order to bring the economy back to normal again. So wages return back to normal, housing returns back to normal, which is turning an enormous ship. It's going to take, like you say, Kevin, it's going to take a long time for a lot of this stuff to turn around. But what happens is that, and go into it, but this, when ICE is doing what people asked Trump to do and remove people from this country who don't belong here, that are not only driving up costs, but also costing money when it comes to healthcare costs. I mean, you have healthcare costs, people's property taxes are insane. Everything you do is taxed. And all those taxes go to helping all these people that are here, that were told, if you come here to the United States, you're going to get free shit. And that's why they came here. And so all of this is based on immigration, 110%. And then when you try to get them out of here, all the leftists are going around and verbally and physically abusing the ICE agents because they don't want that. They're being paid to physically attack the ICE agents to keep the immigrants from being removed. And then the immigrants themselves they put up a fight and put up a violent fight because they don't want to leave either, because they've got a great thing. Why would they want to leave? And then the Somali fraud, it's like, well, of course that's what's going on. They come here into this country and they go straight to Minnesota, because we all know what Minnesota is. Might as well be, the USSR. And so they go in there, commit all this fraud that we all have to pay for. And then we're told that we're, racist, bigots, everything else if we don't like it. And of course, nobody's listening to that anymore, because we all know what it is. It's violent. These are violent, terrible people. And they want to try and change. It used to work when they would call you these names and things like that, and people don't listen to it anymore. Now they're using outright violence, and they're criminals. These are criminal people that you have to really be super, super careful with now. And Trump, as far as I'm concerned, is just not doing enough. And these people, and I'm hoping that what's going to end up happening now is that the more violent these people get, the more violent ICE gets, because they're going to have to be. You just can't listen to these people anymore. And if the DOJ, if those people want to quit, do it, and then put people in their place that are going to follow the actual law.
Taylor.
It is quite big. And my advice for those people who are lagging a bit is to come up with a strategy. Build the foundation first. This is what we do at Priceless Tay. So you can tackle debt one of two ways. First, the avalanche method, which are going to be paying the highest interest debt first, or there's the snowball method. This is for those who really love motivation and want to pay off the smallest balance debt first.
Yeah, well, President Trump also saying that he's not going to let these big corporations and these big private equity firms buy up homes. That homes are for people, and that also is going to be a good sign for young people. Really quick, Liz, why don't you close this out for us? Do you think that these two moves, capping the interest rates and what he wants to do with homes in terms of just making them for people and not these private equity firms, do you think that will resonate with young people?
I think this is a smart solution and a starting solution to a much bigger issue, which is that the fact that we are millions of homes short nationwide. My advice for young people is don't wait for Wall Street to fix your wallet at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's good advice. But it always helps when the government steps in and does some common sense policies that will help young people as well. All right, Taylor Price, we really appreciate you joining.
So the problem is going to be too is now you're going to have the baby boomer millionaires who are going to say, well, you can't stop BlackRock or any of these private equity firms from buying up homes. You're stopping free market capitalism. Sorry, you guys have taken advantage of so many people for so long that, and this is where the communists use crony capitalism in order to justify eliminating free market capitalism as a whole. And so, these people, these millionaires who have hoarded, these baby boomers have hoarded all of the money, are saying, oh, well, you can't do that. Well, it's going to have to be done. Trump's going to have to do that. And so in order for us to turn the economy around because of the illegal immigration and legal immigration, these things have to be done in order to turn that ship around and in order to speed it up. But again, is he going to do that? I mean, these are the people that put him in office. I mean, Larry Fink, all these guys, they ended up putting him in office. And so, a lot of them are probably going to push back on this and say, no, you can't do it. So we'll see. And again, with the credit card debt, same thing. You're really going to cap interest rates at 10% and not have the banking industry go absolutely insane and say, no, you can't do that. And then all of a sudden he backs down. And this is the problem with this administration is once again, it's just, obviously you see how we're not talking about the Epstein files anymore. We're talking about of all this other stuff. And so all these things get thrown, the red meat gets thrown at the base in order to, again, to shut them up. So yeah, the price, I did a story. If you subscribe to the channel, Tyson Food had to pay millions of dollars in fines for colluding with Cargill and other food manufacturers on meat prices. So it's bad enough that we all have to end up eating this processed food because it's very difficult for many of us to afford, filet and tenderloin and actual whole chicken and all that kind of stuff. But then these food companies, who there's only a few of them, they collude, which is your purest definition of a monopoly. They get together, they collude on pricing, they increase the pricing, and then Publix. I did another story on Publix. Publix for filet mignon was $50 a pound. That's effing crazy that it costs that much for tenderloin or fillets. It's absolutely nuts. And I think that was a trickle down from Cargill and Tyson and other food manufacturers because they're allowed to collude and they're allowed to do those things. And once again, this is the world that we're living in. But who's the one that gets punished? I'm in the insurance industry. Between all of the fraud, all of the stuff that goes on, all the illegal immigration and the fraud that that takes place in the insurance industry, you see all these prices going out of control in everything, including insurance, including food, healthcare, everything. Everything is corrupt. There's not a thing that's not corrupt right now. And that's why people are just getting to a point where it's just like, F you, man, we're done. I mean, what else could you possibly do to us? And, the leftists, if they could, they'd kill everybody. And that's what they're trying to do. All right. So I want to go into this the shooting thing because I don't know if anyone knows who Myron Gaines is. Myron Gaines is America is broke. Yeah, we have very few choices right now. I don't know what it is like in other countries right now, but I'm sure it's very similar in Europe. But America is completely broken. It has been taken advantage of. The baby boomers were probably the primary ones who've fully just stripped it clean, and then allowed all of these other people to come in and strip even more out of it. And so generations. It's amazing to me how baby boomers literally do not care about their own children or grandchildren. None of them do. There's not one that I've talked to that said, what's going on in the country right now really sucks for my kids and my grandkids. It's really a shame. Maybe it's because all of them have so much money that they don't give a shit. But I really haven't heard any baby boomer say, I really feel sorry for the next generation. I can tell you I've heard one asshole in particular that I know that said that they don't work hard enough. And that's the typical baby boomer sort of response when it comes to someone saying, it's really hard out there. And it's not just the millennials or Gen Z. It's millennials all the way down. So, I think, and there's a lot more resentment against baby boomers now than I've ever seen before in my 50 years. So, X. I think you're talking, Captain. I think you're talking about X as a platform. Yeah, it's definitely made its mark. I think there's a lot of bots on X, unfortunately. But so Myron Gaines is on X. Myron Gaines runs a podcast called Fresh and Fit, but he's sort of gone off on his own and really gotten into politics. And he's a very extremely common sense guy. And people consider him a misogynist, but again, he speaks truth, and people don't like it, so they call him names. But he was a federal agent for HSI in the past, and he has talked about the shooting in Minneapolis, and was in the same X space that I was in last week, getting into an argument with several people, and these people were trying to tell me that, like some in the chat, that, I'm an idiot and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, yeah, I mean, you get to a point now where you get to a certain age, it's like, yeah, you don't pay any attention to it anymore. And what you know what you saw. And, it boils down to common sense, but then it's sad because you come to a realization that there's probably 90% of the people out here that don't have common sense. And all I have to do is just say, how many of you took the clot shot? So, for anybody for that matter who has that strong of an opinion on something, who's taken that shot, you have no business talking about anything with any sort of an authority at all. Doesn't really matter what it is. But anyway, so Myron was on the same X space that I have been on, arguing with these people. And of course, I was taking a break from X at the time that Myron goes on with Dan Bilzerian. And how Dan Bilzerian handles himself is exactly how many people on the space, including other people who you would have thought, without any doubt, would have taken the side of the ICE agents. That they were, what do you want? I'm not MAGA, but they would maybe consider themselves MAGA or be in the MAGA camp. Were, justifying what these two women were doing, and that it was a bad shoot and all this other stuff. I mean, it was an unfortunate situation, but once again, I mean, it's not arguable when you put yourself in a position to, if you go, if you want to go out there and screw with a bunch of cops, what do you think is going to happen to you? I mean, it's once again, it's just like a very overly simplistic solution. just don't go out and screw with police. And you want to protest, go protest. But if you want to go out and physically get involved and mix it up, at some point something's going to go wrong. And it's obviously this is what they wanted to have happen. Yeah, and I don't and this is another one where Dan Bilzerian's like, I don't know where you came from, how you got your money. He pays for a bunch of chicks to be on yachts and shit. It's just really this influencer. It's kind of like the Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate kind of thing where, they take advantage of young men, unfortunately, that are in a difficult situation financially. And they say, oh, well, if you do this, this, and this and pay me money, I can make you rich. And it's like basically selling sales is what these guys do. So it's really sad. But I do want to play this because Myron and I told these guys, I said, as soon as you have Myron on, he's going to basically shut you guys down. And sure enough, that's what he
considered reasonable. And he's going to be cleared. Like, trying to run at them. So it's like they're going to shoot. Like, again, I know you're saying, hey, I wouldn't have shot, but that doesn't matter because what matters is did the guy act reasonable based on the facts for him? Someone might shoot, others might not shoot, but use of force isn't always perfect. What it comes down to, was the use of force reasonable? And it's absolutely going to be considered reasonable, and he's going to be cleared. Like, we can have our disagreements here all day, but when we look at the law and we look at how we behaved, given all the facts and circumstances, no.
And by the way, I think, isn't Bilzerian like Armenian or something? So a lot of these guys, and there's other guys too that came out at me on X that I thought once again were sort of in our camp, but then it turns out it's Iranian intelligence or Russian intelligence, kind of like the guy that was on here before that I just got rid of. And they were some investigative journalists went in and found out who they were and found that they were being paid by Iranian intelligence or Russian intelligence. And so then that's when the mask comes off and you go, oh, okay, now I get it. That's why these guys are doing what they're doing. Because at first it doesn't make sense, but then you're like, okay. The common sense guys, the actual guys where you listen to and you go, okay, yeah, these guys are very consistent with what they're saying and they're telling the truth. But then you find out about some of these guys, they have English accents, but then you find out, okay, well, they're Iranian or they were being paid by this tenant company through a Russian proxy or something.
To him, he's not going to go to jail for this. It was a lawful shoot, and that's all that matters.
I know there's a lot of people who disagree. Actually, we've got Dan coming up. I think he disagrees, but we appreciate Dan as well. He's been great in terms of his pushback against a lot of the Zionist and drama and this kind of separation between left and right. So we appreciate both of you guys. But Dan's come up. Dan, appreciate you coming on. How are you? And
that's Suleiman. He's the one who runs this deal. And I've been on it a bunch of times. He's been good enough to bring me up. But here's another guy that for the longest time I've been on the space for probably a couple of years now, and even when he's done financial spaces, talked about insurance. And then it's like wait a minute, all of a sudden now this guy, everything is Zionism, everything is Gaza, everything. And I can understand you taking a particular stance, but when this whole shooting came about and we were talking about it, it was like okay, you're completely different from what I've known over a long period of time.
Dan's coming. By the way, Dan's not also the big guest that's coming up. So we've got two big guests, two huge guests, but actually they're not the one. There's actually a third one coming.
Yeah, and I do have to get out of here because it's like 9:30 now, and we got to do I got to do Fresh and Fit.
Appreciate it.
But no, man, no worries.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, Dan. Appreciate you coming on. But thanks for coming on for Myron. Appreciate you.
Yeah, no worries.
Wait, Myron, where the fuck are you going?
I got to do Fresh and Fit.
There's going to be a lot of cursing.
Motherfucker, I just came on to talk to you. Now you're leaving?
All right, what do you got to say? Go ahead.
I mean, I just want to discuss this thing. So basically, I mean, dude, look at it. I watch the videos, a lot of them. I feel like drawing your gun and firing multiple rounds eliminates some of your ability to get out of the situation and to get to safety. And I also think shooting a woman that's got her foot on the gas pedal of a car also, endangers other people. So my point is, by shooting the girl, I don't think that you alleviate any of the threat to you. And I think that you endanger other people potentially as well. So that was, my quick view of the situation.
Yeah, well, you two things can happen at the same time. He can try to get out the way while simultaneously shooting, right? Like that you can.
I mean, you can, but like to draw your gun and fire accurately. I mean, that does take at least a half a second, right? And I think that you could. I mean, the car wasn't even barely moving, right? If the car's coming at him at 30 miles an hour, I get it, draw, shoot, whatever. But when the car is basically at a standstill, I mean, she puts it in reverse, then puts it forward, turns the wheel, she's going, but like.
Do you hear now what this guy is saying? So first of all, he says that he was some sort of like a volunteer officer. Guarantee he's never been in any sort of gunfight or anything like that. Who knows if he was actually trained by anybody? And I find it hard to believe that he was any sort of like real officer of any sort. They may not have even given him a gun. But look how, and this is similar to a lot of others that armchair quarterback this entire thing. And the biggest one that I've brought up, and Myron pretty much brings all this stuff up anyway, is what you're going to hear these guys mention shooting from the front once, but then he shouldn't have shot twice from the side. As if somehow you can actually make a split, it's a nanosecond, by the way, nanosecond decision between the first shot and the next two shots. Now, if you talk to any law enforcement officer, any military or anybody, they'll tell you, and Myron's going to mention this as well. And if you have a room temperature IQ, you would know that the idea is to shoot as many bullets as you can to stop the threat. That's the idea. But there's a lot of these people like this guy, Dan Bilzerian, who for whatever reason, and maybe he's that dumb, I don't know. I wouldn't think that he would be. He's at least smart enough to scam a bunch of guys out of their money and whatever. But to have that opinion really blows my mind.
The car's not really moving. I mean, if I'm standing by a car,
and the car was moving
even
the
if I
entire
hit the
time.
accelerator, I mean, it kind of like bumps me off, but it's very different than getting hit at 20 miles an hour or something like that. So my feeling is just you can just jump out of the way. Like also not be in front of the car when you see, the car is rolling backwards.
You can back up or get out the way while simultaneously defending yourself. Like if someone comes at you with a knife, right? If someone comes at you with a knife, like you can back up as you're shooting them, right? Like you don't have to just run away. And I think another important thing as well that people need to understand when it comes to law enforcement is they don't have a duty to retreat. Like I've seen a lot of people say this thing about just get out the way and all this other stuff. Like law enforcement has absolutely zero obligation to retreat for a civilian. Like if a civilian was in this situation, it might be a bit different because Minnesota does have a duty to retreat law. So does New Jersey and a couple other states in America. But when it comes to law enforcement, and in order for them to be able to effectuate and do their job, they can absolutely stand their ground and use the force necessary to deal with the situation. So with her driving the car towards him, he can try to evade the car while simultaneously because she's.
So what would happen is these guys would also say, well, if somebody's 20 feet away from you, by the way, and charging at you with a knife, there's a real good chance you're fucked, even if you have a gun. So these guys essentially would make the argument, well, the guy with a knife, you could just shoot him once and then push him to the side and just hope for the best. And then maybe if you need to shoot two more times. It's the same thing. You have a car coming at you, which is considered a deadly weapon. You're going to shoot once in hopes that did the trick, and then try and decide within a split second whether or not to shoot for a second and third time. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I love how when Myron Gaines starts telling him things, Dan Bilzerian goes, "Yeah, yes, correct." It's like what this stuff? Why don't you just shut your mouth and listen to him talk?
Using deadly force with a vehicle while simultaneously shooting at her. Both things can happen at the same time. And again, this is and it's very important that people know, right, when it comes to law enforcement, 2020 hindsight is not going to be utilized against him, right? To people talking about she had the car turned all the way to the right, the steering wheel. It wasn't.
Listen, I get it. I get it. Split second decision. I'm not saying it was murder, whatever. I feel he just went into the interaction angry and he wanted to shoot somebody. I feel like,
There's another ridiculous statement. I think he went into the situation angry and he wanted to shoot somebody. So here's somebody who all of a sudden now is in this guy's head. So he knows what this cop was thinking the entire time. That's the other thing. And there's another guy that's in this group that basically said the same thing, that this is why these guys joined the force. And I said, no, it's not. How do you know? How you're not in those people's heads. You don't know why they joined the force. And this is what you're dealing with. I mean, these are people, these are very dangerous people because they have money. And you look at it and you go, how is it that you have money? And to the extent that you do, and you have that thought process, that you really are that arrogant and stupid that you think that you can get into somebody's head and say the reason that guy was an ICE officer is because he wanted to go out, he was angry, and he wanted to shoot someone. You know that. That's all that needs to be said with these people. I mean, instead of looking at the actual video and breaking it down in a vacuum and looking at it as an independent action, they're like, oh, well, this guy was there because he was pissed off, And then all these guys are talking about how dangerous ICE is and they're doing everything the wrong way. Well, who the hell are you to tell them how to do their job? So the whole idea is just they don't want them to do their job. That's the point. But it's just amazing to me. And I'm just so sick and tired. And everybody's sick and tired of listening to these people. Fuck Dan Bilzerian.
Was a reserve cop for 4 years and been around like
I was a reserve cop for 4 years. Shut up.
Those guys just want to shoot people, Like this guy been hit.
Such an asshole. At an age, bro, like a lot of cops are not trying. Like, dude, there's a lot of civil liability. Open yourself up to criminal investigations. Like, the worst thing you can do is get involved in a shooting, man. Like, nobody.
I understand. I get it. But I'm just saying, if I'm a cop and I assess a situation, I see there's a fucking soccer mom in there with a dog, and fucking fuzzy animals in the passenger seat. I don't know. To me, I'm not prepared.
Soccer mom with fuzzy animals and a dog who's bullying law enforcement officers. This is where, so at this point, I have no choice, but, and again, this is my opinion, to believe that Dan Bilzerian is one of those guys that somehow was manufactured artificially, just like the Tate brothers somehow, and are being paid, and other guys on X, that are paid to sow this, whatever it is, in order to break up the I guess a movement or the party, or to get infighting. I'm not really sure exactly what it is. Yeah, don't try and run someone over as a prey. But for him to make that statement that it's a soccer mom, from what I understand, they were abusive to their kids. I know the cigarette thing might have been, and I'm not sure how that came out, but you're out there protesting, putting your lives in danger, and you leave your kids in school or at home or whatever you're doing. So you're ignoring your kids and you're going out and you're screwing with law enforcement, taking your lives in your own hands. And Dan Bilzerian calls him a soccer mom. And once again, is trying to make her out to be the innocent person. So I look at somebody like that and I go, okay, you never were on the side of the right or righteousness or anything like that. There's something wrong here with this guy.
Prepared to draw my gun and shoot at her. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. To me, it didn't seem like she was trying to kill him. It didn't seem like it was, a serious threat. I mean, I get it. Yeah, she tried to drive away. But if that was a traffic stop, I feel like it's very common for people to flee traffic stops and they don't just shoot him in the head. I mean, listen, I get that it's a split-second decision. I'm not saying it was like murder or whatever. I just don't feel like he, was going to make the situation any better by shooting her. Right? Like, now you have a car that's driving down the fucking road and, it hit a parked car, but it easily could have hit a person. It could have hit flown off into the intersection, killed somebody else. Also, he's firing 3 rounds. There's crowds. There's people around.
And all these guys are saying the same thing. They're repeating the same talking points, that by shooting her in the car, it could have hurt somebody else. Well, she was fleeing. It was a felony flee, by the way. By what she was doing was considered a felony. So the fact that she wouldn't get out of the car after being ordered to do so is just another layer on top of what they were doing in the first place. But this guy's defending her.
He could potentially hit, other people in the crowd, hit the dog, hit a fellow officer. I mean, shit happens. Bullets ricochet. I'm just saying, I don't know. To me, I'm not just knee-jerk reaction. The girl's leaving. I shoot her in the head 3 times. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is precisely why, you're kind of speaking from a hindsight perspective of all these other things that could have happened, right? So,
but he's taking all that into account when he's in the situation, right? Anytime you're, a law enforcement officer, you understand the situation. You don't fire your gun into a crowd of people. So if you're surrounded by a bunch of people, you should be less likely to, draw your firearm.
That's an easy shot to do, man. She was a few feet away from him. She's right in front of him. That's not going to be that hard of a shoot. Anybody that understands.
No, but there's people and officers behind the car. I'm just saying,
of course, but these are rounds that typically aren't going to go through the individual. They use hollow points that stay in the body for that purpose. But they use the federal ammunition. But the point I'm trying to make is, bro, is again, we're speaking from a 2020 hindsight perspective. What he's going to be judged on: was there an imminent threat? Yes, you can articulate that a car is a deadly weapon. Proportionality: he used a gun versus a car. Proportionate. And then reasonableness: you can make the argument that this was absolutely a reasonable response to a vehicle coming at him. When you're in the academy, they teach you someone could close the distance on you in a knife very quickly. They teach you that a car is a deadly weapon. If somebody comes at you with a car, that's going to be serious bodily injury or death. So we can Monday morning quarterback it all day, but he's not going to be judged on what we're talking about. He's going to be judged on what were the facts known to him at the time. And the facts known to him at the time were they're doing an immigration enforcement operation. They told her multiple times to get out the way. She didn't comply. They try to get her out the vehicle. He draws his weapon. She still drives towards him. Whether the steering wheel will turn all the way to the right or not, he's not going to sit there and be like, oh, well, if I move 2 degrees over to the right, I might not get hit. No, he just didn't want to take any chances, and he shot at her while simultaneously moving out of the way to remove the threat. That's what they're trained for. And
well, I mean, he fired 2 rounds from the side.
But that's
here's another. This guy's such a
with the fact
moron.
pattern that I just presented, most people are going to say that that's reasonable. And then you said, hey, he shot from the side. What they're taught to do is to shoot to stop the threat. If that means 1 shot or 10 shots, that's irrelevant. Stop the threat. That's
but what I'm saying is the threat is not a threat once the car passes him, right?
God, man, he has to be doing this shit on purpose. He can't be this stupid. There's no way that Dan Bilzerian is doing this because he's dumb. He's got to be doing it because somebody's paying him to say this. It's got to be. I can't, and this is the problem with a guy like this who has this influence on social media. You can't believe anybody anymore now. Here's an example. When I was, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, 15, I don't know, before we had cameras everywhere, I used to think to myself, once you have cameras everywhere, I mean, obviously it could be a problem because people could abuse it. So you have your own problems there. But once people if you have people on camera and they're caught in the act of doing something wrong, there's no argument at that point. And I was sure I was wrong about that, because here you have several camera angles of what happened. And you have this nitwit, either on purpose or because he's just, I guess, I don't know, hit his head against too many yachts. I don't know what it is, but for him to say the things that he's saying, and here you have a law enforcement officer who's a federal law enforcement officer explaining to you what most people would consider common sense and would not have to be a federal law enforcement officer to understand. These are the dangerous times that we're in right now. This guy's actually influencing. People are going to listen to this guy simply because he takes a bunch of pictures of himself and pays a bunch of women to be on a yacht somewhere. And I don't know how this guy's making money. I guess Captain, what you were saying is his dad was, I wouldn't be surprised. Did something with some investment firm or some shit. But this is he threw a porn star off her. Yeah, and I'm sure he paid her to be there. I mean, that's what this guy is. It's just, World is
no
cooked.
longer a
Speaking from a
threat.
2020, you're speaking from a 2020 hindsight perspective. You know it's not a threat now after looking at everything, but you don't know.
But the car was, but Myron, the car wasn't moving. It's not like this car is barreling towards them at 50 miles an hour and there's a crowd of people or there's some, threat behind them. It's like this car is at a standstill. She's leaving.
And somehow you're supposed to figure all that out.
I don't think her intention is trying to kill him. If I was in the situation as the officer, I wouldn't view this as like, oh, she's trying to kill me. I mean, she was smiling as a soccer mom. Like, I don't know, she's a fucking idiot, obviously protesting, whatever. I'm sure he's annoyed by her. I'm sure they had to deal with tons of these, idiot blue hair liberals, whatever. But I just don't think that it warranted shooting her in the fucking head. That's my opinion. I understand your stance. I feel like car would, dude. You know what I mean? I'm here going 2 miles an hour. So you were standing at the floor of the gas. It's not. Guys, I feel like and you have to be careful what you allow because and security up at your doorstep. Now they kill you because they thought you were a threat. I'm certain precedent. And if they actually want to get rid of these fucking illegals, I feel like they do a lot. We haven't seen like these mass deportations. I mean, they let fucking 10, 30 million illegals in. Like, we haven't even gotten rid of 1 million. It's been over a year. So I don't know. I mean, I'm obviously in favor of getting rid of all these fucking Somalians that are causing all this crime or whatever. But to me, this wasn't.
Do that if you got rambunctious, annoying people like her blocking them from doing their job. And that's like precisely the issue is like, you're not going to get the mass deportations if you got a bunch of liberals literally impeding ICE agents from doing their jobs. They're following them around. They're reporting where they're at when they're doing their raids. Like, this woman was literally committing a felony by impeding these guys. And when they tried to get her out the car and she refused and then just put the car in drive and drove towards the guy, at that point, she forfeited her right to be looked at as a victim. Like, if
look, dude, arrest her. I get it. I'm not about,
she committed a felony, bro, and she was trying to run at them. So it's like, they're going to shoot. Like, again, I know you're saying, hey, I wouldn't have shot, but that doesn't matter because what matters is, did the guy act reasonable based on the facts for him? Someone might shoot, others might not shoot, but use of force isn't always perfect. What it comes down to, was the use of force reasonable? And it's absolutely going to be considered reasonable, and he's going to be cleared. Like, we can have our disagreements here all day, but the reality is, but when we look at the law and we look at how he behaved, given all the facts and circumstances known to him at the time, he's not going to go to jail for this. It was a lawful shoot, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, I feel like more matters to me as far as, did the guy actually was he actually in fear of his life? What was the actual intent? To me, I'm not like black and white. Cops can shoot people. Sometimes it can be totally legal under the letter of the law, but there's, potentially ways they can de-escalate it.
Her intention is irrelevant. Like, all he can do, because since he can't read his mind and this is a rapidly evolving event, all he could do is say, I interpreted her actions as a danger to my safety. They gave her
but then why is he walking in front of the car?
He was recording the car at the time because to get the plate and all this other stuff.
Plates in the back.
Yeah, he's getting her on video as well too. So he's getting everything documented. And then that's when the guy comes over and says, hey, get out the car. And then she backs up and she drives it towards him. And you can see he gets surprised. He's trying to move to the side and he gets hit in the process and he shoots her. But again, this is a rapidly evolving event that's happening quickly. Like, he's not going to look at the steering wheel and be like, oh, she had to turn this way, this many degrees. What it comes down to is, does he have a reasonable belief that that he...
What it also is too, it's an arrogance of somebody like Dan Bilzerian and the others that support the woman. It's an arrogance that these people have that think that somehow they could have handled the situation in a better way or thought quicker or could move faster or think more quickly and make a different decision, as if they were there, they would have been better at it. And that is part of the problem, is that you have these people, instead of acknowledging the fact that those women put themselves in that position. And if they were never there and they were just standing on the side of the road protesting and not using their SUV as a blockade or weapon or whatever, if they were just on the side of the road with a bullhorn or whatever they had, whistles or some stupid shit like that, this never would have happened in the first place. But somebody like a Dan Bilzerian has this arrogance that he somehow could have done something better than the officer. He could have handled the situation better under those circumstances.
Could get serious bodily injury or be killed, and the answer is going to be yes. A car coming at you, whether 5 miles per hour or not, you don't know that. So, and what her intention
well, he knows the car's at a standstill. He knows she put it in reverse.
Her intention is irrelevant. If you drive with someone after getting lawful commands given and you don't obey, it's a wrap. Like, you forfeited your ability to be treated in a certain way.
You
like,
just forfeited your life.
I mean, fleeing the police is not, an executable offense. Being an obnoxious liberal is not executable. You know what I mean? Like,
but running your car into them as they're in front of you is.
I mean, yeah, I get she put it in reverse, turned the tires. If she wanted to hit him, she just would have floored it and gone right at him. Like the fact that she put it in reverse. If I'm standing there, it's like if I see a girl put the car in reverse, it's like, okay, this car's moving. She might be, I'm just getting out of the way.
See, now he can process this information better than anybody else.
The car, like, she may be fleeing. I'm not like, oh, my life is in danger, she's gonna try and kill me. I'm getting out of the way of the car because I see the car, going to reverse, and now the car's, moving. Potentially she's reversing to, leave out of there, which she was. Like I said, man, listen, we can disagree on it, but to me, I think the more important piece of this is that, it's really dividing the country. And I feel like the greatest issue that we have right now is this control, and we're not going to fucking beat that by fighting each other. And this idea that it's the fucking Muslims are the problem, or it's the left is the fucking problem, or it's blacks or whatever. Like, people can be causing problems, but they can be not the root cause of a lot of these issues. And so to me, I feel like so much of this is a distraction of what's really going on. It's a distraction from the Epstein files. It's a distraction from our fucking politicians that are clearly occupied and under the control of a foreign government. Like, those are my issues. It's not some fucking blue-haired idiots, protesting. It's not, some.
And once again, this is where I think he's paid to say this stuff, because now all of a sudden it's, I don't care about this, and it's not that important to me. It's the Epstein file. Of course, all of this stuff is important. But you notice how he says, oh, it's about it's not about the Muslims, and we're doing all this stuff to distract. Well, so in other words, what we should just do is just quit deporting illegal immigrants and just let them all stay. That's basically what you're saying, is that we should no longer, because these people are doing everything they possibly can to stop law enforcement from doing their job, we should just throw our hands in the air and give up and say, you guys win. That's essentially what he's saying. And then when you say that to them, and I've said it to these people in this, oh, no, that's not what we mean. Well, of course, that is what else is there? If you don't want to have these illegal immigrants deported, then, or if you don't want, the officers to defend themselves, then you basically have to send them home, because you're not going to stop the liberals and these people from attacking them verbally and physically, more often than not physically. So the idea is just to shut the whole operation down. And that's where I don't trust this guy anymore.
Fucking idiots, that are upset about this, or people trying to say it's the Muslims. Like, I feel like we have one clear problem.
He said that
and
twice now.
All this shit just seems to be a big fucking distraction away from that clear problem.
Well, yeah, I mean, look,
and nobody's saying the Muslims have anything to do with any of this anyway.
And I think, most lawyers would agree with me, especially from a self-defense perspective. The guy is going to be cleared. He didn't break the law. The woman fucked around and found out. It's unfortunate someone lost their life. But if we're going to go off of legal precedent and the law in general and use of force and law enforcement tactics, the guy pretty much went right by the book, man, and he's going to get cleared by this. Like, we can object to it morally, we can have our grievances, we can have our issues with it. But at the end of the day, he acted in a manner that was reasonable given the facts and circumstances known to him at the time that he shot. And that's what he's going to be judged on. He's not going to be judged on, hey, you could have moved out the way, or hey, this was a woman, this is fucked up. She was only going this many miles per hour. None of that matters. Our opinions don't really matter here. He's going to be judged on is what was known to him at the time, and he's going to get cleared of this. Like, this is a pretty, I'm actually surprised that so many people are like, trying to, argue this from a perspective of morality or 2020 hindsight, when in reality, this happens all the time. Yeah. Where
what about Randy Weaver? What about Randy Weaver? What about all the other instances where, the government has basically just murdered its citizens and there was, no recourse? What about, I'm sure you're familiar with what happened in Waco. I'm sure you're familiar with, the Ruby Ridge incident. Like, there's been numerous times when three-letter agencies have literally murdered U.S. citizens. And I think it's just a scary precedent to set, especially when you recognize that this time the government does not have your fucking best interest in mind. So this whole thing of let's just trust the government and it's legal, as per the government.
I'm not saying to trust the government. I'm going off of just this incident alone, based on the facts and circumstances of this particular case, based on what was going on. This is a clean shoot.
Yeah, this is, to me, it's a bigger issue, right? Like, is this guy technically, legal? Is it going to be cleared? Whatever. That to me isn't as important as kind of like the overarching issue of we should not be trusting our government. We should not be giving our government more power. We should not be allowing.
So somebody else also brought up in this space that actually two people did that the ICE is trained by IDF soldiers, or the IDF. And so whether that's true or not, I don't know. But let's just say for the argument's sake, they were. My argument was to them, I said, well, okay, so the IDF is training ICE agents to be assassins. Is that what they're doing? And that's what happened in this case. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, of course not. That's not what happened. So it's like, well, so what's your point? So they're being trained by IDF. They come here and this woman drives a car at him and he shoots her. Oh, well, it's because he got trained by the IDF. These are the things now that are coming out that people are saying. And it's this QAnon kind of stuff now that it's like a different sort of form of it. It's a different form of Q where everything is a conspiracy. Everything happens because of this or that. And David Correct. You look at, the Waco stuff and I also brought up, who was it? The Kenosha, Kyle Rittenhouse. Nobody talks about that. Here's a guy, same thing happened where he's getting chased by three separate criminal liberals. Okay. He shoots them both, or shoots all three of them in self-defense, killing two of them. And then what did the left do? They were up in arms and said that he was a murderer, and then ended up having to go to trial for self-defense. And of course he won. Should never have gone to trial. But there are literally people to this day that believe that he shot three black people in cold blood, and happened to be three white people. Two of them he shot and killed, and all three of them had criminal records. But this is the same thing. This is no different. But then you have a guy like Dan Bilzerian in the mix, on top of all of the leftists that are muddying the water and acting as if they know, what it is that they're talking about, either purposefully or not. And this is really a dangerous situation we're in now.
The government to fucking kill U.S. citizens, under what? I mean, listen,
so
if this was illegal that was resisting, that's a completely different scenario. This is a female U.S. citizen, whether you like her or not. Like, our country, is founded.
A felony. She literally committed a felony.
Okay,
exactly.
People resist arrest all the time. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean you shoot them in the head. Like, people fucking flee the police.
See, did you realize how stupid of a statement that is? So if you resist arrest and you grab the officer's gun and shoot him, I guess shit happens, right?
wasn't just a resisting arrest. It was her impeding them in their official duty. She had been there like blocking
I mean,
them
that's
off.
fine, but you don't kill people for that. Like throw her in jail, make an example out of her. Fine, no
That's
problem.
what they tried to do, but
example
she didn't comply. Like that's, you know, see, like, bro, we got to put some onus on the individual here. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, they gave her lawful commands. She didn't listen. They warned her, and then they shot her. And this is why.
But I don't think that escalation is warranted. You know, I think like her.
See, if I happened to be in that space at that point in time, I would have lost my shit, and I would have barged in at that point. I don't care if Suleiman would have dropped me, but at that point, you have to, you know. And this is where Myron basically has to say, "Look, asshole, you know, enough is enough. You know, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to sit here and go through a circle jerk with you, you know, back and forth and listen to this. Okay, you're basically what you're doing is you're insulting my intelligence. You're insulting the intelligence of the people that are listening. You're insulting law enforcement, federal law enforcement. You're insulting the voters who voted for this to have this stuff happen. The deportation of illegal immigrants. He needs it, and hopefully he does. I mean, there's a little bit more time left on this, where he lays down the law. I doubt he's going to do it. But at some point, these guys, you have to just tell them, hey, enough is enough.
Fleeing does not warrant, an execution. I think her trying to drive away doesn't warrant an execution, even if she bumped the guy. Like, I don't know. To me, I'm looking at the situation from the lens of an American citizen. And like, do I want my government to have this much power that they can just start, killing fucking citizens just because they're allowed to by letter of the law? Because to me, I'm looking at that guy. I'm like, if I'm in that situation, I don't feel like she's trying to kill me. I don't feel like my life is in danger. I just don't. The car's fucking going 2 miles an hour.
That's you.
I mean, bro, the car's going 2 miles an hour.
Remember, Dan, that's you. That's not the guy. This is a very subjective situation where you might not feel that way, but he might have felt like his life was.
Let me ask you this: if you're in that situation, do you feel like she's trying to? Do you feel in fear of your life, or are you just going to sidestep?
Again, everybody is different, right? I told you.
No, but I'm asking you. Because look, you were in law enforcement. I value your opinion. I trust you. I think you're, pretty morally sound. So I'm just curious, if you're in his spot, do you fucking shoot her 3 times, or do you step out of the way and then pursue her and arrest her?
Well, again, I don't know all the facts and circumstances that led to him pulling out the gun and shooting, but I mean, given what I saw, he did act in a reasonable fashion. I think what he did was absolutely reasonable and proportionate to what he was dealing with. And I think bodily injury you can argue, was absolutely imminent, and he reacted the way that he did. Does it mean that it's the perfect decision? No. Does it mean, but it's definitely not the wrong decision that he made. I mean, he could have went about it in a different way. Use of force is never perfect, but given all the facts and circumstances, his response to what happened was absolutely reasonable.
I just feel like in that situation, shooting her does not eliminate the danger to you, and it doesn't eliminate danger to other people. I actually think it escalates it on both sides. I think it takes away your ability to get out of the situation, and I think it takes away, others, safety if she barrels through an intersection and hits another fucking car, or those bullets can go through the glass. If they contact her, they still, 9mm exit Hollow Point or not, he didn't hit her all 3 times. So, one of those stray shots could have easily ricocheted off the glass and hit an officer, hit a bystander, whatever. So I just think he put himself in more danger, and I think he put people around him in more danger. And obviously the woman that he shot, he put in grave danger. So to me,
yeah, but that's from a 2020 perspective. You know what I mean?
Well, again, but when you're in the situation,
he's not going to be judged on that.
I mean, listen, when I was, a cop, anytime I was in a situation, I'm like, considering if you shoot, you don't shoot into a crowd, right? Like if somebody's running away, or somebody's, shooting at you and there's tons of fucking innocent people behind them, you might not take the shot. You know what I mean? Like those are things that you have to take into account as an officer. Is like, are you going to, put other people in danger? If you got an M4 and you're in full auto, you're just going to rip a fucking, burst into a crowd, right? Even if there's a bad guy there. I'm just saying, like, I think you have to take into account your surroundings. It's a residential neighborhood.
Is controversial.
I don't know.
I think this is controversial just simply from the fact that they were actually hiring. Was this officer even legally in the country? And notice how this gets buried too, by the way. Yeah, 12 years reduced to 4.5, of course. Unbelievable. Yeah, no, nothing This should have been, where you see thousands of people in the streets. Yeah, there are protests, but nothing like you see here. Yeah, unbelievable. Mohammed Noor, born in Somalia, was the officer who shot this innocent woman in her own house after she called the cops. Not a word said. It's unbelievable. That is unbelievable. I do vaguely remember this happening, and then of course what happens, it gets like everything, it gets a memory hold because it doesn't fit a narrative. But then you get a guy like this, and by the way, this is the problem with people like Dan Bilzerian. Dan Bilzerian is not American; he's Armenian. His father was born in Armenia. He's not a real true American. He calls himself an American, but if he was really truly an American, and I actually have respect for, yeah, she was Australian American, but you look at somebody like Myron Gaines, and that's why when you look at a guy like Myron Gaines, you can call him misogynist, and and he has this reputation for whatever, but he speaks the truth no matter what. And so you have to respect no matter what it is that he says, even if you don't like it. Myron Gaines speaks the truth, and even somebody like, and this is why people hate him so much, Nick Fuentes. You don't have to agree with him on 100% of what he says, but he speaks the truth, and he gets crucified for it. But you look at somebody like Dan Bilzerian, and these other people. There's a couple of other people that are in here in these X groups that are so-called Americans. But they're disingenuous. You know that, with what Dan Bilzerian is saying, it's like, okay, everything about his entire life has been shady. Like, you sit there and go, how do you make your money? How are you, like, how is your social media the way it is? Like, all this stuff. It's not normal. It's not right. It's not. You sit there and you scratch your head, and 9 times out of 10, when you're scratching your head to try to figure out how it is the way it is, it's because there's something shady going on.
I mean, to me, those are factors I'm taking into account when I'm going into the interaction. If his hand's on his gun, he's considering using it. When you're considering using your gun, you take that stuff into account. Like, to me, if I felt like there was any risk of her running me down, I wouldn't even be in front of the car. Like, I'd be coming from the side. And, that's one of the things they do teach you in training, is to not stand in front of vehicles, especially, if it's not in park or you think there's a chance that, she could flee. So, that's my perspective on it.
Well, yeah, like I said, he didn't expect that. You can see he's clearly surprised. He tries to get out the way. But that, again, that's on her for doing that, right? All law enforcement can really do is respond to the actions of the individuals. And if they put themselves in a situation where the officer can reasonably believe that their life is in danger, then they can use deadly force. And that's what ended up happening here. And that was a really bad decision by her to do that. This is why it's so important to, if the cops give you commands, like, deal with the legal bullshit in a courtroom. Don't sit there and resist and put yourself in a precarious situation and potentially get yourself hurt like she did. It just wasn't really smart what she did on her end. It was very stupid.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's arguing what she did was intelligent. It's just the question is, did he, make himself safer? Did he make the other people around him safer by his actions? I would argue the opposite on both. So that's how I kind of look at it, is like, does shooting her, keep him any safer? I actually think that it doesn't, right? Because
no, I think it absolutely made the world a better place. Nick Fuentes said that last night. He hadn't been on the air for a while. Yeah, and this guy he's just talking to talk. I mean, he's already repeated himself a million times. And yeah, the answer to the question is, is the world a better place? Yeah. Should it have happened? No. I wouldn't. I'm indifferent on that, on her. I don't give a damn about her at all. What I feel bad for now is the officer is going to have to go through hell over this, and I'm certainly upset about the fact that the person who got their car wrecked by her running into the back of it. That I feel bad for that person, but I certainly feel bad for, and the dog. Still don't know what happened to the dog. I don't know if Captain, or anybody knows what happened to the dog. That poor dog is in the back of that car. And that's another thing. It's like, do you like some of these people who get pulled over by the police when they're drunk driving or fleeing the police and they have their kids in the back of the car? I mean, I equate it to the same thing. Like, so you're going to go out and protest and you're going to have your dog in the back of the car, and as if you're going out for, to run errands. And like something's not going to happen to you. You're going to go out and screw with a bunch of police officers with a dog in the back of your car. And Dan Bilzerian's going to say that it was okay.
But you're speaking from a 2020 hindsight perspective once again.
Well, I mean, just in general, if
we
somebody's
can reassess it, we can look at the footage. Like, you're speaking from a 2020, which is like, that's not that. That's,
well, no, I mean, my reaction would not be to draw my gun and shoot him. My reaction would be to get out of the way of the car. Like, if I didn't feel like there was an imminent threat, if I didn't feel like she had a gun, I wouldn't even have my hand on my gun. Like,
Myron's getting annoyed at this point now, but he's holding his cool. And I wouldn't be able.
This wouldn't be.
And that's your decision to make, but that doesn't necessarily mean that his response, though different than yours, wasn't reasonable. And I think that's.
But what I'm saying is shooting somebody that's potentially going to run you over doesn't save you.
That's irrelevant. What's relevant is it reasonable and was it proportionate? And the answer is yes. Like, just because you don't agree with it and you wouldn't have done that, that's totally fair and valid. However, that does not disqualify the fact that the way that he acted was absolutely reasonable according to the law. You don't have to like it or agree with it, but it was reasonable.
Well, I'm not arguing the lawfulness of it, right? Because you can argue the car is a deadly weapon.
I'm not going off of morality, anything. I'm strictly going off of lawfulness. Like, did he behave in a reasonable manner given what was occurring at that time and place and that short brief of time? And the answer is yes, and that's what matters. We can say, hey, just move out the way. You couldn't have done this. You could have done it another way. Use of force is never perfect, but was it reasonable? The answer is yes, and that's what the courts are going to judge him on, and that's all that matters, honestly. None of our opinions matter. What matters is was it reasonable? And I think that's what the law worries about. And that's the only position I'm arguing from. Like, I'm arguing what he did was reasonable. But I do got to go, guys. It was good discussion. It's always good to hear other perspectives. I see your perspective, Dan, for sure. But yeah, I think from a lawful perspective, I think it was reasonable. But yeah, cool. I'll talk to you guys because I really do got to get running.
All right, I'm going to leave it there. I don't know. Who knows where the kids were? They're probably either in school or maybe they left them by themselves. Who knows? But yeah, but I wanted to play that because I had missed it. I wish I was there for it. I would have gone on and said something because I don't, this guy Dan Bilzerian, everybody kisses his ass, because he's, I don't know, got 2 million followers on Instagram, but it gets to a point where I think, all of us have had enough. We're sick and tired of it. We don't care who you are, how many fucking followers you have, all your, whatever your thought process was and how arrogant you think you are and how you could figure out how to handle the situation better. But there are a lot of bad things going on in the world, and these guys like Dan Bilzerian don't make it any better. And I have to hand it to Myron Gaines. I love how he handled it. I wish he got a little bit stronger, but I think at some point he just said, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to sit here and talk with you for 2 hours or whatever and listen to you repeat the same thing. But I have a lot of respect for a guy like him. Love him or hate him, whatever. And he takes a lot of heat. And he puts himself out there, but he does speak the truth. You don't have to agree with him 100%. But again, it's just like a guy like Nick Fuentes. So, and then you're going to see, James Fishback of Florida. He's gaining a lot of momentum because he is, he has a lot of the same thoughts that a lot of us who are sick and tired of what's going on. And I'll be interviewing him in February. So I'm really super excited about that. He was just was interviewed with Tucker Carlson last week or the week before. So we're going to have a chance to interview him as well. So I'm looking forward to that. I think it's on the 17th of February. So looking forward to that. And I'm going to call it a night. It's been 2 hours. Captain, thank you for the for all the chats. I really appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe. I will be, now that I think I've figured out the algorithm problem on YouTube, hopefully coming out, or I'm going to be live more frequently Monday through Thursday, and I think 9 o'clock's good. And so be sure that you subscribe, and we will catch you.